friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon, and today I'm going to teach you how to play the 1923 song, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. Now, if you're here for just the play along, just skip all the way to the end. I have chapters titled for each little section. We're going to go over a little bit of the history of the tune, how to play all of the chords, as well as a little chord melody arrangement that serves as a great intro for the tune, or even a solo if you should choose to play it as such. Let's get started. Jimmy Cox was a vaudeville performer, composer, and lyricist who wrote this song back in 1923. He premiered it himself in his own show, and there were a handful of other artists that also recorded this work, but it never really caught on. And we have to think of this in historical context. 1923 was the Roaring Twenties. This was before the Great Depression. And it's not until 1929 when Bessie Smith did a recording of this that came out right before the stock market crashed that this became a massive hit. So the historical perspective actually matters as to why this song became popular. Had Bessie Smith not done that recording right as the Depression was hitting, we likely would not know this song, but instead this has been something that has transcended genres. We see Western swing players and blues players as well as jazz players still playing this tune to this day. And there's a great reason for that. It's a pretty basic 8-bar blues form that we see commonly throughout the time period. So it's quite an easy song to learn with just a slightly different melody over the verse and chorus. So let's look at what those chords are. Going to be doing this song in the key of F as it is traditionally done, but you can transpose this to any key you would like. I'm also going to link to a version down below. I did a play along in the key of C, which may be better for some singers if you have a slightly lower voice. I know for myself, F is pushing it a little bit as far as range, but it sits really well on the instrument. We're going to be starting out on an F major chord, 2 open, 1 3. We're going to strum this for 2 beats. And then go down to an A7th chord, open, 1, open, open. This is a change that, although odd, is something you've probably heard before. This is contained also in 5/2. Or Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone. This is a portion of our circle progression that we see so prominently in the music of this time. We're going to strum that A7th twice and then go exactly where we think we're going to go, to the D7th chord, bar across the 2nd fret, and then play the 3rd fret of your A string to add that 7th, that C. And you're going to stay here for 1 full measure, 4 beats, and then we're going to go to a G minor chord, open, 2, 3, 1, and we're going to stay here for 2 beats, back to your D7th, and then back to G minor for an entire bar. Now you can play a G minor 7th here, if you would like, but because we're going to a B flat in a moment, and those are very similar chords, I find that if I don't have a band, especially a bass player behind me, that there's some ambiguity in the harmony. So if I'm playing this by myself, I generally play a just G minor triad like this, but if I'm playing with my band, I'll usually play a G minor 7th. So just know that you can swap these chords out. Let's listen to what this first line of the melody sounds like. I once lived the life of a millionaire, spending my money, I didn't care. And then from there, we're going to go to a B flat 6th chord, open, 2, 1, 1. And you can see if you're on your G minor already, you just need to bar partially with the 1st finger, lift up the ring finger, and there's your chord. We're going to stay here for 2 strums. And then go up to a B diminished 7th chord. You're going to put your ring finger down on the 2nd fret of your A string, bar across the 1st fret. You can also do this with individual fingers, but if I'm coming from a B flat 6th, this is a much easier change to do than swapping to this, and I always want to move my hands as little as possible. And that leads our ear nicely back up to our tonic chord. Back to our F for 2 strums, to our D7th, and then we're going to come down to a G9 chord, which is really just your G7th chord that you've been playing your entire life, and lift up the ring finger so you have an open A string. That also happens to be our melody note, so this helps support the melody as well if we're containing these extended notes in the chord in our voicings as well as while we sing. We're going to strum this 4 times, and in measure 8, we're going to stay on it for 2 strums, and then go to a C7th chord. So let's listen to that 2nd line. I was taking my friends out for a good time, buying champagne, gin and wine. All right, so that's our entire A section of the tune. Let's try that much together, just the first little verse. 2, 3, 4. I once lived the life of a millionaire, spending my money, I didn't care, taking my friends out for a good time, buying champagne, gin and wine. Good. Now let's talk about just a couple substitutions that were common in the earlier recordings and also contained in the original sheet music. If the composer wrote these, maybe we should at least know that they exist, although they're not in most contemporary versions of the song. The first major change is when we come back to the F. We go B flat, B diminished, F. In the original score, we play this for one strum and then a C minor 7th or C minor chord before the D7. So let's listen to what that sounds like and how it guides us in the harmony. So starting on the B flat. So we get just a little bit more movement in the chords. You can feel free to add that in, and you don't have to do it every single chorus. You can just do it occasionally, and that's absolutely okay. Now the weird thing is in measure 8, the last 8 of the form, what Jimmy Cox had originally written was to play the G9 just for the first beat and then go to a G7 flat 5. Open, 1, 1, 2. So it's the same as your G7th chord, we're just adding a D flat on the C string. And let's listen how that sounds. I'm going to play a measure before this so you can hear that movement to the C7. What we're doing is creating a chromatic walk down in the bass. D, D flat, C. So this is a neat little device that sounds pretty cool, but you don't hear commonly done on more modern examples of the song. So you can feel free to pepper that in if you'd like. And now we have to talk about how the heck do you actually end this song, because we end on a C7th in the form, right? Which is a problem because eventually we want to resolve back to an F. So the last time that we come through the form on the chorus, we're going to just precede this G7th with a C7th and resolve to F. So nobody knows you when you're down and out. So instead of staying on that G9 for the extra 2 beats, we just put the C7th there. But another thing that you can do and was popularly done is actually add a D flat 7th for 1 beat. So it sounds like this. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. So you get this little blue note in there, this flat 3 in there, which can be a cool little device to have. So now let's hop over and look at a little chord melody version of this song. The chord melody for this song sits really well in the key of F on uke, and even if you don't have aspirations as a solo player, it's important to learn these so that your ear can better understand how the melody and harmony interact and how we can apply that on uke. These are pretty basic chords that we use in here. There's nothing too tough. So we're going to start out on our F major chord. We're going to leave the A string open this time. But we have a pickup note, which is our C on beat 4. We're going to pluck our open C string with the thumb, strum through our F. This A is now our melody note. And we'll do a quarter note and then 2 eighth notes. So a down strum and then a down up strum. We're going to pluck the G string on beat 3. That's our melody note. And then strum through this A 7th chord. Then we go to our D7th bar chord just as before. But we're going to pluck, strum, pluck, strum. So we're going to pluck the E string, pluck the C string. Let's listen to just those first 2 measures of the chord melody. Now we're going to the G minor 7th, but our melody note is now a D on the 5th fret of our A. So using this voicing is going to be a bit of a stretch for a lot of us. So what I want you to do is take your G major chord, slide it on up to the 5th fret, and that's going to give us a G minor 7th. We have G, F, B flat, and D. This is also a nice B flat 6th voicing that we'll be using a little bit later in this arrangement. So we're going to strum this. Again, we're going to do a quarter note, 2 eighth notes. I tried to keep the rhythm fairly consistent. You can, of course, play with the rhythm and strum this however you would like, as long as we're still hearing the melody. And then we're going down to our D7th. Our melody note is this C right here. So we can just play our bar chord D7th. And then we're going to go down to our G minor 7th, open 2, 1, 1, strum this. And then on beat 3, we'll hit the G string open, and that's going to give us our melody note, and then strum through one more time. So let's listen to the first line of the chord melody, see how it sounds. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go to a B flat 6th, and this was our B flat 6th voicing where we landed in the other version. But again, our melody is going to be up on the D, on the 5th fret of our A string. So we're going to go back to that G minor 7th voicing, but it's now acting as a B flat 6th because it's different in context in the song. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to come through with a triplet. I use my thumb roll triplet here. You can play whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You can even just strum once on that. And then from this, we're going to go to a B diminished 7th, and that voicing is going to be barred across the 4th fret, and then the middle finger on the 5th fret, our F on the C string, and then the ring finger is going to be that D on the A string. You've played this voicing before. But our first melody note in the measure is actually an E on the 7th fret. So we're going to bar, put the middle finger down the C string, and then play the E on the 7th fret of our A string. And that's going to give us a B diminished 7th chord with an E in the top voice. Strum it and then come down to your regular diminished chord shape. And we're coming down to F, but our F now needs to contain the C on the 3rd fret of the A string up top. And we're going to come on down to a D 7th chord, but we're going to use the Hawaiian D 7th here, 2 open, because we have an A in the melody. This is just the G 9th chord that we played in the chord version of this song. Open 2, 1, open. On beat 2 of measure 8, we're going to pluck the E string individually. That F is our melody note. Resolve to C, and you can make this a C7th by adding the B flat on the 3rd fret of your G string as well. So let's listen to the second line of this, nice and slow. And that's our entire chord melody. It might take a little bit to get your head around these shapes, but it's a nice simple one. And as I said, it's really nice to just put everything together and see how the melody that we're always singing actually works on this instrument and how it relates to all of the chords that we're playing. Now let's take a moment and let's try playing this entire song together. And we'll start out with this little chord melody version as an instrumental introduction. 1, 2, 3. Lived the life of a millionaire, spending my money, I didn't care. Always taking my friends out for a good time. Well, I'm buying champagne, gin and wine, just as soon as my dough got low. Couldn't find no friend, no place I'd go. If I ever get my hands on a dollar again, I'm gonna squeeze it in, squeeze it till that it go grins. Well, nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket there's not one penny, and your friends say you ain't got any. Just as soon as you get on your feet again, everybody there, your long lost friend. It's mighty strange, without a doubt. Well, that nobody knows you when you're down.